Okay, so floor is yours, Lisa.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm Lisa Prati, External Affairs Manager for ComEd, and I want to say thank you so much for inviting us here tonight to talk to you a little bit about smart meters and the installations that you've been seeing throughout the community. With me tonight is our Vice President of Customer Field Operations, Jim Conway, and then also Dave Doherty is our Director of Smart Meters. So he's with our AMI division, and he is actually going to be doing the presentation, but I wanted to ask Jim if you wanted to
I just wanted to thank you very much for the opportunity to come before you and present the information on smart meters. It's great new technology, and we want to make sure that we answer any questions that you have about smart meters. And I won't further ado put off Dave.
I was hoping there'd be more residents here, but I'm sorry. So.
Oh, that's okay. If you could pass on the information, that will be helpful.
So this program started in 2011 with Illinois legislation that was passed requiring ComEd to make certain investments in smart meters, reliability programs, smart grid technologies. So we got started in earnest around 2013. We had 4 million meters that we needed to install across northern Illinois. And 2018, we're in our final year of that program. We've installed just over 3.8 million meters to date. And as of a couple weeks ago, we got under 300,000 left. So we're excited to be coming into Buckingham to kind of close out in this, our final year of the program, where we'll install about 330,000 meters this year. The installation process is, and I think some of you have already gone through it, but it's a pretty simple process. You don't have to be home. Our installers can be driving a white vehicle that's well marked with a smart meter installer. Has anybody seen that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So you see them? They stick out kind of like sort of. And then so everyone's instructed to come to the home, knock on the door, let you know that they're there and what's going to happen. They'll all have an ID badge like this with a photo ID. Right. So if they don't, you can
show the audience too.
Pass this around.
They changed our meter today.
Show the vehicle. Huh?
I was picking up the garbage.
Well, one of the problems we do have at ComEd is we have people out there posing as ComEd, particularly preying on the elderly. And so when we come out, we want to make sure that people know that.
Yes, we've seen you snatch
the photo ID. If you don't see it, our installers are never going to ask for money. They're not going to ask to come inside. If they do,
Not asking for money yet, but wait till that first bill comes. Then you're going to ask for a lot.
That's stupid.
We're not going to ask for any extra money. The meters pay for themselves. So for about every dollar we put in the smart meter program, smart meters return $2 in savings that by law we're required to pass that back to our customers. So they're actually helping keep our bills down.
Oh.
So
I haven't
good.
done that yet.
I like that. I like that.
There's a lot of misinformation out there about the smart meter, and there are some concerns that you certainly can get to and address.
I just asked if we hold the questions till he's done, and then I'm going to open up to the board, and I'm writing a bunch of questions down.
So this is the smart meter, right? It's all solid state, right? So the old meters had gears and kind of like a watch, right, with dials and analog watch. This is a solid state. It's really a small microprocessor. It's a computer of sorts, and so there's a radio inside that communicates then to a pole-mounted device, which then has cellular communication. Eventually, that data gets transported back to ComEd's back office, where process the data, and at the end of the month we'll render a bill just like we do today. But in the meantime, it's capturing half-hour information. It captures usage information, voltage, temperature, and so it's really helped us make our metered locations safer through that temperature sensor. So some of the misinformation out there is that smart meters will cause fires. We've actually been able to prevent fires as a result of the meter because of the temperature sensor inside. We have a department that works for Gemini that is monitoring those meters on a daily basis. If the temperature alarm kicks off, we'll send somebody out to investigate. They'll pull the meter and make sure that nothing bad or ominous is happening inside that meter fitting. We talked about the cost, so we're going to spend about $1 billion installing 4 million meters across northern Illinois, and the meters themselves return over $100 million of savings each year. And so it's a avoided meter reading. There's a improvement in bad debt. One of the things that you notice the meter has some weight to it. There's a switch inside. Right, so it has a remote connect, disconnect switch. So today, when people move in and out of apartments in Chicago and other big multi-unit buildings, the power stays on in those apartment buildings. And about $40 million a year prior to the meter there was nobody living there. There's no one to send that bill to, and there's about $40 million of electricity that gets used that nobody pays for. And with these meters, we're able to shut power off when people move out of the apartments and then move back in. That's going to save our customers and again keeping bills low by avoiding that usage. I think that the really exciting thing, we talked about the information, the meter has the capability to do a last gasp. So what that means is that if it loses power, it has enough power in that radio to send out a signal saying I've lost power. That information gets routed back to our outage command center, operations command center in Joliet, where people are monitoring that, and they can dispatch a crew before a customer even calls. So if we get 3 last gas, then we can tell a good likelihood that a transformer's gone down. If we get more than that, we start identifying larger devices that are out of power, and we can then get a crew there quickly. And that's been a great thing. One of the things I like to show is, and I recommend everybody download the ComEd app after they get the smart meter if you haven't already, and give it a quick demonstration, and then I'll turn it over to questions. There's probably some items I may have missed on my list, but I'm sure you got questions. I don't have service, of course.
Well, this building is a little. This ranks almost as a bomb shelter, really, on cellular phone.
Yeah, Verizon or AT&T?
That's all.
AT&T.
Yeah,
Verizon.
That don't make it out here.
Okay, what about Verizon?
I got Verizon too.
Okay.
With the outage or with the app, you can report an outage. So we do tell people that it's best with the smart meter if you sign up for outage messaging and alerts program online. And that way, if we do know there's an outage, we'll send you a text message letting you know that ComEd knows and there's a crew en route. If you have an outage and you don't get that text message, and even if the smart meter, because the radio can potentially fail, like we just had, we'd still like to know. We'd still like to get the phone call.
That's awesome.
So it's been a huge improvement for reliability, improvement for safety. It reduces costs, and it's really changed the way that we've been able to do work. Now on the customer side, we have a peak time savings program that the meter enables. So because we're capturing that data every half hour, if customers sign up, again, you can go online and you're going to get solicited. Once you get the meter, you'll get solicited to sign up for peak time savings. But it's a completely voluntary program that when costs get high in the summertime and people are using a lot of electricity, we'll send out a text message to people enrolled asking them to reduce, and we pay people $1 for every kilowatt hour that they didn't use. So they use computers to project what you would have used on a normal hot day, and then they look at what you actually used, and they subtract the difference and pay you $1 for every kilowatt hour that you don't use during that time period. The average customer saves on each event probably saves about $2 to $3. We've seen some customers save over $30 on a single event. I think they're going in the basement and just turning the main switch off. But so with that, I'll open up to questions.
Okay, I'll open it to the board first.
I have a question. What has been the accuracy of the reading on these? There's been a lot of stories out there. I don't want to believe things that I read, but have you tested the accuracy on these meters as far as are they as accurate or inaccurate?
They're more accurate than the meters that we're removing. So they're more accurate. There were some reports It was in Europe, I think, is where they're talking about some really wild swings on smart meters. Those are not the meters that we're installing here in the US. Those meters, I believe, were made in China. And so these meters have been tested both for ANSI certification for accuracy. When ComEd, so they're tested at the factory for accuracy, which is right here in Chicago. That was part of that Illinois economic stimulation, was to actually have the meters assembled here in Chicago. So they're tested for accuracy there. They're then sample tested when we receive them. And then we have a program where we are going out and periodically randomly testing all meters to ensure that the meter population
At what rate?
There's an ANSI statistical number of meters, but we don't test every meter. Now, customers, if you want to have their meter tested, we will come out and test your meter, on request.
I mean, what's
once
the
a year.
recourse for a consumer who says, I've got a bill that's extremely high, and obviously if your meter is showing you we've used this much, you're not gonna go back and adjust that, correct? If we find, how do you account for inaccuracy? I mean, we all know it's a mechanical unit. All
Right.
mechanical units are subject to issues, but I'm wondering about how those kind of issues get resolved when people call and say, hey, you know what? I've never had one like this, and all of a sudden it's high. I just haven't heard good responses. Again, people do things in the media, so I don't want to believe that, but I'm asking you personally, what's the response time and what's the recourse for people who have these kind of issues?
So if you call our call center, and I'll say that we've had some misses on our end where we didn't handle some of the requests as well as we could. And we actually got a group looking at how do we handle those calls better, right? And so Channel 2 News had a investigative reporting on the smart meters and where they had challenged us on the accuracy of those meters. Now I can tell you that two of the customers that reported problems with their meter were in the same building, and their meter had been tampered with. And I can tell you that if you open up that meter and you try to play around with the wires, there's a good chance you're going to increase your usage. That's what those customers taught us. And when we went out there and looked, they were trying to get around some of the safeguards of the meter, and they actually increased their usage. So two of the cases were tampered. Now the one that I think they did a better job of was a woman in she was an elderly woman in what's that town? It's kind of a southwest suburb, Darien, in Darien, and we went out and tried to help find out where that usage, because her usage had gone up, absolutely, without a doubt. Usage gone up. Now, probably been about a year since the meter had been installed before that usage went up, which makes us kind of suspect that that's not the meter. And we went out there and we couldn't find it. And she got frustrated with us, and she went to Channel 2. She'd gone, I think, to the Citizens Utility Board. She went to a number of people trying to get them to hear her case. She was frustrated because her bill was up, and she knew that she wasn't using. And we couldn't find why her usage had gone up. Well, our engineers in the back office continue to look at her data, and now that we've got that smart meter data, it gives us a lot more information. And so we continued to look at it month by month, and all of a sudden her usage came back up. That spike that she had reported and didn't get anybody's attention on had come back. And we went out there, well, if you remember last summer it was pretty dry. Spring we had rainy weather. Well, she had her husband who passed away had put in a sump pump to pump rainwater into his garden. And with the dry summer, that sump pump didn't run all summer long. As soon as this fall, we started getting more rain, that pump started running again. And we went out there, found it. She didn't know it was even there. Found the breaker that was associated with it. We turned that off, and her bills have come back down. So we can do a better job, absolutely, on responding to those requests from customers when a high bill. They're trying to say most of our high bills happen when there's an estimate. In 2010, I think it was we were reading meters about 80%. That sound about right?
Right.
And we had a lot of estimated bills, which means we had a lot of high bill complaints. We estimate poorly, and then there's a makeup bill. With the smart meter, our high bill complaints have come way down because of the smart meters. because you don't have the estimates that you had in
Well,
the past.
even the human interface, we had meter readers running around reading, and although we had really good people, they're still human beings, and they would make errors. And then if the systems didn't hit certain parameters, they would go ahead and bill that, and people would see fluctuations. And with the technology and the smart meter, you're basically, right on every time. You're going to see every, like Dave said, every half hour. So that's significantly reduced the number of complaints that we had. The one big difference, I think, yes, with the technology, with the old electromechanical meters, if they would break or do something, if they did anything, they would tend to slow down. Okay, over time, gears would wear out and things like that. Like Dave said, with the technology and the meters, they have solid state, so there's no moving parts of the meter whatsoever. And what people may see is, they see an accurate description, because every time we do these, we still offer to do tests. I'm gonna be honest with you, every time we do the test, they come back spot on. I mean, they're by far the most accurate measuring device we've had for meter technology, much more accurate than our old electromechanical meters.
And what's the average, have you tested what the average lifespan is for one of these smart meters once they're installed?
Well, they've only been installed since 2013.
Right,
Now,
so we don't really know.
we have some pilot meters that were installed in 2008 that are still doing just fine.
The technology, I mean, typically they can look at changing those meters out every 20 years proactively. Technology changes, that's the exciting thing here. We're certainly, with billing accuracy and things like that, that's all a big benefit. I think though, from the consumer end, being able to get involved in energy management and making decisions within your home, like Dave pointed to with peak time savings, but now you're starting to get arrangements potentially with Nest if you have, or Alexa, and things you can do, smart appliances that potentially change the future of how you manage your electric bill, really.
Are these meters affected by any other kind of electronic devices or anything? Have they found, there's sometimes when you have these electronic meter type things, I don't know all the technical on this one, but they can be impacted by other technology that's around them. Are these meters subject to that?
I haven't seen where the meters have been impacted by other devices. We have on a rare occasion some older electronic equipment seen where that older equipment has been impacted by the meter. So the radio, like I said, it runs on a 900 megahertz. I didn't say 900, but the radio is at 900 megahertz. So if you think about some of the old cordless phones that you might have had in the 90s, I think they ran 900 megahertz. Well, everything is moved to 2.4 gigahertz, whether it's phones or Wi-Fi routers. So there's no interference there. But some old baby monitors, some old garage door openers, we probably half dozen devices we've had to go in and replace because of the interference that the meter had with that. But like I said, I can kind of both hands the number of cases where
we see people do things. They put giant magnets on the meters, believing that they'll slow down. I mean, the stuff you see people spin them upside down. The amazing thing is now, like Dave said, we all carry the burden of energy theft because it's a cost that's socialized. You might not see it on your bill, but it's built into the rates. And the amount, it's amazing now how quickly we know if people are stealing electricity. And the meters are kind of like their own little personalities. They know who their friends are. It's kind of like Find My Friends, right? You have your meter, it talks to this meter, it talks to this meter, and it has a network. And you see people, used to, in some areas someone they got disconnected or whatever, they would go or they want to change it, mess with their bill to get it lower. They would take the meter and reinsert it somewhere else. Or if they were cut, they would take somebody else's meter and come and install the meter here. Now we know, as soon as a meter's been interrupted, like Dave said, which is good for a lot of reasons. If there's a storm and you're out of town, we have our control center now, the ability to see an indication that we lost power at that location. Why? Instead of being so dependent on people calling in to notify us if they had an outage, we can quickly get algorithms that sense all these, what Dave referred to as last gas, and basically dump into our system and we go through an algorithm within our outage management system that's able to predict, hey, these are the areas that's out, these are the areas that are unaffected. Go to this location because it's likely we have some sort of a failure point over here. And they can quickly, they really help to reduce the amount of time, not only for the billing aspects or the energy management, but for reliability purposes. We're much more quickly able to identify points of failure on our system. So we can quickly go out there and avoid the driving down the street and going through backyards and trying to find the problem. Smart meters give us a lot of early indications where to look for problems.
Okay, next question.
Is there like a sensor light on there? They installed yesterday at my house, and we have security cameras, and it started going off every 2 minutes, all day, all night, and so my husband put a piece of tape over it. But you could see something flashing on the security camera, and it was like setting it off, and then the tape took care of that.
That's one I haven't heard of.
So-
I haven't heard of that either, but
There are lights there.
So that's why I was
right.
wondering if there's
Yeah.
some sensor thing that's shooting, I mean, because you can't stand there and see a light, but on the security camera you can see
You can see it
a
on this.
flash.
Because there is a light that blinks when it's communicating. So there's like a flash, it's a green light.
Shows it's transmitting. Basically, what Dave said, every half hour when it's transmitted, we get an indication light. I never knew anybody that
It was so
Is that light before or after the meeting?
It was, it was awful. And one other thing, like in our town, we've had a lot of surging. And we've lost major appliances because of the surge. And so I don't know, will this be able to tell you that there's a surge, because it's so hard on your major appliances when that surge comes. Like if your
You get like a
home
high
is
voltage.
or around,
Yeah. Real low.
yeah, real bright, real low,
We have been able to.
very often.
To work with our operating area and identify, usually the complaints we have is around voltage being too low. And we've been able to go out and rectify that, but there have been some occasions of high voltage too, that we've been able to use the data from the meter to confirm what customers are seeing, and then,
So that should notify ComEd
well,
of the surge.
we still need you to report that so that we can go and look at the data. We don't have anything built in for voltage monitoring.
There's a lot of reasons why you experience surges on a distribution system. It could be wildlife contact, it could be anything, a vehicle accident that hits a pole, somebody backs into a pole, and the two lines slap together, and then all of a sudden you get a surge effect. Typically, if you're grounded well and you have, there's a small arrestor and the lightning arrestor type in the meter, but typically if you're grounded well, you can ride through a lot of those events. Not all, it depends on the magnitude of the event that happened and what caused the actual surge at that time.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the surges in the summer. I
Yeah,
mean,
lightning is a big.
well,
Yeah.
no, I mean, just, it'd be warm, and then all of a sudden you get a high, surge. I mean, the lights would go really bright, and then it'd go back to normal, then go low, then come back up. And I was worried about some of my appliances at the time, so.
But I think the question is, if we call
Yeah.
and report the surge, are you guys gonna be able to see the surge with these meters?
Potentially, I mean, it depends on if the surge was.
It depends on the duration of the surge,
Right.
whether it's recording at that time.
Okay.
It's not always transmitting, like Dave said, it's about
Yeah.
every 30-minute intervals, so it would really depend on the timing of when that occurred, whether it was caught by the meter.
Next.
I get a question about the peak times and all that. Are you gonna start charging more for people peak times? Like, instead of being like peak savings, like you're gonna charge more every time everybody's doing stuff all at the same time? Is it?
So we have an hourly pricing program that ComEd offers today, where prices change based on the wholesale market. There was a study that was done this last year using data from the meters that have been installed, showing that over 90% of our customers would benefit from being on that hourly pricing program without changing their usage patterns at all. But there's nothing, to answer your question, there's nothing planned that we're gonna force customers on to a time of use program. It's an optional program, I think that customers can take advantage of, but there's nothing that's forcing customers that way. Now there's new legislation that was passed in 2016. Legislation was passed for renewables, solar. The meter will measure energy that's both delivered and received from the home. So if you put solar panels on your home and you're actually feeding power to the grid, the meter will be able to capture that. And the peak time, where was I going with that?
Well, I think
if in the legislation it says the ComEd can institute time use rates if we get to a certain point of adoption of renewables. I don't think that's going to happen for a long time. And again, there's no tariff right now, but what's I guess expected is that customers who had the renewables would be subject to that time use potentially. So there was some of that in the media, but again, nothing's planned and nothing's required at this
Would it be peak time of everyone or just like peak time of individual use?
The way the peak time works now is it's projected that we're going to have a peak event, meaning that the system has a peak. And typically that coincides with air conditioning at commercial buildings. So typically it'd be like if we have 3 90-degree days in a row, there's a good chance there's going to be a system peak coming after that.
But for like our municipality, okay, do we have a peak? We don't have any industry, we don't have, any commercial buildings or anything. It's mostly residents. Now, like Cass was saying, are we gonna have a peak time period? Like normal would be, let's say, 0.8 cents per kilowatt, but during this peak time that you guys are saying that it could be, will our kilowatt costs go up?
No, I think there's confusion a little bit between what's known as real-time pricing programs and then being able to sign up for the program that Dave was talking about.
That's an opt-in.
Right. All you can do is save. It won't cost you more on those peak time days. It's not going to cost you more. It's just a matter of how much you want to save. Like someone said, pull the disconnect in the basement and nothing runs. That would achieve the most amount of savings. But it doesn't cost you more if in fact you continue to use electricity at your normal rate. Versus some real-time pricing programs can benefit, they're available. They can benefit you in the sense that, my sister and her husband had a situation where they both worked. No one was home during the day, and they did everything at night. Well, the price of electricity actually shifts in the marketplace. At night, it's the cheapest time to buy electricity. It's in surplus versus the days. So they get involved and they decided, I'll take the real-time pricing program. So when you tend to see price spikes in real-time prices of electricity, if you're on that program, you have to opt into that program. Then you can have some volatility. But neither one of them are ever home during the day. They don't get home with their professionals. They don't get home until later in the evening. And they're doing things at a time that is fairly predictable that that's the lowest price of electricity. So they save money. But if you were somebody who were home all day and you're doing your wash or running your air conditioning, it probably isn't an economical option for you. So that's something that people would investigate and opt into on their own if they wanted to do that. Versus the program that Dave talks about is just there's no downside. You save, you cut back your electricity use, you save. You don't save, it's still the same amount. That you would have billed on a regular day.
Okay, anybody else?
So even if you sign up for the peak time savings program and it's not gonna cost me any more.
It will not cost you a dime more if you don't do anything.
Okay.
You can only save.
It's kind of this only goes one way. So
Right.
there's really no risk in.
I've heard issues, somebody brought up health issues, like supposedly these things are hooked into your home's system and it creates health issues for people. Is that?
So the health concern is really about the radio. And it's about the people that believe that radio frequency causes health problems. And those are people that don't carry cell phones.
Right.
And
Don't use microwaves.
don't use microwaves. So I have engineers that go out and for people who are concerned, and we'll measure. We'll show them what the RF emittance is from the meter, and go inside their home and show them what their microwave is generating, or what their cell phone, and show them how but the amount of, I tell folks that to get the same amount of RF emittance from the meter that they get from an 8-minute phone call, they'd have to go stand in front of the meter with their head pressed against it for a month. So the amount of RF transmission it's less than 5 minutes a day that they're actually transmitting, and they're in microbursts, so very small bursts of energy throughout the day. But most of our meters are less than 2. 5 is really kind of the outlier. Anybody else?
Is there a way to opt into these programs and then ComEd tell you what would be best for you, or you can only opt into one?
There's a variety of programs. We talk about peak time savings is really kind of the most popular and the easiest one to get involved in, but we have a high usage alarms or text messaging and emails that you can sign up for, which will give you weekly emails to show you what your usage is and what your highest day was.
So ComEd won't suggest this would be the best for your household?
And as part of those energy usage reports, they do provide some recommendations around how you might be able to reduce your energy. And then there's also a usage alert that you can set a threshold and get a text message or an email that if you're using more than what you had thought you wanted, like your bill's gonna be higher than that threshold, throughout the month we'll be tracking that and give you a message to say you want to reduce your usage if you want to keep your bill low.
Or how your month is looking from an end of it'll give you a prediction of what your bill would be potentially at the end of the month, just based on your current usage pattern.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. I've got 2 fast questions. All right, now our town is split up in 2 sections. I've seen one little, there would be about 12 houses out, and there was a long time. So you're saying this is gonna pinpoint the area of the outages a lot faster now?
Yeah, it gives you an indication of where power is impacted. The indicators are a really powerful thing. I used to run our control centers, and it used to be completely or highly dependent on phone calls. Mm-hmm. So, whether something happened on a weekend in the summer, or if it happens at nighttime, you wouldn't get a lot of calls. Now it's the same type of response all the time, day, night, winter, summer. If they're not speaking in the system, they send, we lose communication with them, they send the last guess with signal. And we're able to predict basically on where we lost the meters and where we still have power. And that really, when you're going through what they call the patrolling phase, trying to find out what caused power to go out here, it lets us isolate what we call the operable or isolation devices in that area, and really allows us to pinpoint and cuts the trouble.